Hey, Matt here, and welcome to Mob Street. Now, today I am here with my 1996 Harley Davidson Fat Boy, and I wanted to show you how to test the stator on a Harley Davidson. This test, even though this bike is almost 25 years old, can be used on most all Harley Davidsons to test the stator. And it's extremely simple. It only takes a few minutes and you need very little tools to do it. So anyways, let me show you what we need and then we'll get started. Okay, so stock Harley Davidson manual. We're going to use that to make sure that we have the correct specifications. And then the next tool that we're going to need is a digital multimeter. Now, these can come from all over. So I've got another one right here. This one right here was just purchased at the local auto parts store. You can get them at your hardware store. Just make sure that it has AC and DC voltage, and also you can test resistance with that. And then for this test, that will be all that you need. So multimeter, manual for the correct specifications, and moving on. All right. Now, you've got your tools, you've got your specs, you know where to look at, but where are we going on the bike here? So, the stator is inside your primary chain case. It's behind the clutch and the primary drive gear and chain and everything. It sits behind that. So the plug, if you want to come a little bit closer, the plug that you're going to be testing is right here. Okay, so you'll unplug your voltage regulator, and then if you look right in there, behind your shifter, right at the very front of your primary chain case, that plug right there. Okay, so we're going to take our two test leads, and as you can see, it's reading OL. We want it to remain that way. That means our stator is in good condition. So we're going to go to the first pin on the stator connector, which is right back here. We're going to take our positive lead right there, and we're going to bring our negative lead up here to a ground on the bike. Now if you look at the meter, still showing OL. That's good. Now keep that ground and just take your positive or your negative, whichever one you're using, put it in the other pin. All right, so no grounded stator. Okay, so for this test, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my other multimeter because it's not a funky ranging one that's going to, just cruise up and down. So I'm going to use this one here. Again, this is one that you can just buy at your local hardware store or at your local auto parts store. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the bike, and then I will use my throttle lock up here on the right hand bar to lock the bike at 2000 RPM. So again, you want it to be about 16 to 20 volts per 1000 RPM. So we're going to go check that out and see what we get. Okay, so we did our grounded stator test and we did our voltage output test. And both of those checked out good. So my battery is still dying, even though my stator checks out good. What's the next step? The really only next step that it could be is your voltage regulator or your battery. Now my battery is brand new, I just installed it, and it is dying pretty quick, so I have to look and see what else it might be. Again, voltage output tested good, no grounded stator, so I know that those are in good, or I at least know that that's in good shape. So let me show you what I found on my bike, and then I can show you how to test to see if your voltage regulator is actually doing what it's supposed to. Okay, so We're down at the stator connector again where the voltage regulator connects into the bike. Now, all of our stator tests are good, but let me show you what we've got. So, the one thing that I noticed with my bike is this right here. If you look at that plug, zoom in up there, see that connector? See those prongs? Notice how one of them is kind of not there? That is why I feel like my voltage regulator is going out. But let me show you a test that you can do to see if your voltage regulator is bad or not. I'm going to plug this back in right here. Okay, we're going to test the voltage regulator. Now, in order to do this test, you're going to have to turn on the bike. And you're going to have access to the battery. So, I've already removed my seat bolt on here. So I'm going to pull this off. Okay, and why don't you go ahead and come on up here. Okay, so as you can see right now, my battery is sitting at 12.5, which is not where we want it to be. So if your voltage regulator is working, when I start the bike up, you should see that number jump up to about 13 or 14 volts. That way you know that the battery is being charged. We're going to start the bike up. Again, it's going to be loud, and I will show you that number once we get the bike fired up. So here we go. Okay, now as you saw with that, it revved up to 13.7 to 14. Now, in that case, the voltage regulator is working, but with that busted connector, that little pin that you could see was kind of gummed up, that is not holding the connector together. So I'm not getting a good connection between that. So in all honesty, with how much this bike shakes, it is a solid mount. My voltage regulator, in this case, is bad. So I need to get a new connector. In all honesty, it's easier just to buy a new voltage regulator. That way I'm not having to reconnect, you know, or cut and splice and solder and all that. So the voltage regulator is bad. That's how easy it is to test your stator and your voltage regulator on your bike. Now, as you can see in that test, when I connected that connector back onto the stator from the voltage regulator, it made a good enough connection that it was charging my battery. However, when I ride for an extended period of time, suddenly that connection just shakes loose, and just with that busted prong that's on that connector for the voltage regulator, I don't get a good connection, which in turn does not charge my battery, and my battery dies. That's one thing that you can look for between the stator and the voltage regulator. If your voltage regulator with that test up on your battery is testing good, and your stator is testing good, but yet your battery is still dying and it's a new battery, you can do a battery test on it. I know this battery is good. I've done the test on it. Everything on it is okay, but it was still dying. So I was getting confused as to what this possibly could be. But with that little connector, with that prong being broken, it's not holding a good connection between the two. So I hope you found this video interesting and informative. I'm going to be getting a new voltage regulator for the Harley so that I don't have to deal with a dead battery at the top of the mountain anymore and coast all the way down to the bottom. And I hope, you know, this sheds a little bit of light. So the test for the stator is super easy. And then with your voltage regulator, you can test it right there at the battery just to see if it is pumping enough in there or not. Now, with that being said, with the voltage regulator, another thing to look for, if that test is showing more than 15 volts, that means that your voltage regulator is allowing too much voltage through, and it will fry your battery. So you want to be in between that 13.5 to 14 range, and if you're in there, then you know that your voltage regulator is good. Just a little bit of a side note on that. Anyways, yeah, that's how easy it is to test your stator and your voltage regulator on your Harley Davidson. And we're going to call it at that. I hope you found this video informative. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, follow along. And if there's any comments or questions, put those down below the video. I do my best to get back to those as soon as I can. And we'll leave it there. I'm Matt. This is Mob Street. Thanks for watching.